Today we're reacting and having a discussion about a video from Scrump that says why no one plays these DVD killers. I'm really curious as a pure killer main. I don't play any survivor, to discuss like my sort of my opinion as to why I personally don't play a lot of these killers potentially that are going to be listed, and also why others may not want to play these killers that are listed. So let's get into it.
In front of you, I've placed 3 different killers: Skull Merchant, Hag, and Twins. I want you to take a long look at these 3 killers and tell me what you notice about each of them and what they have in common.
Okay, let's try it. Okay. So, what do they have in common? Well, they all have low pick rate. They all have they all have unappealing aesthetics, I would say. Like, their character designs are not very appealing to most audiences. I would say that they all have very specific playstyles that doesn't really fit everybody's sort of cup of tea, I guess, with their preferences. I would say that they also don't get a lot of skins, I guess. Or maybe if they do, like, people don't really like them that much or something. But let's continue.
Is it that they're all weak? No, not exactly. Hag and Twins are arguably very strong in the right hands, with Twins being one of the most underrated strong killers in the entire game. Okay, so that's not it. Is it that they're all somewhat macro-based? Kind of. You're on the right track. In fact, you're getting pretty close. Is it that all 3 of these killers have the lowest pick rate in the entire game? Bingo! Right on the money. Yes, Hag, Twins, and Skull Merchant have the lowest pick rate in the entire game. Specifically Twins, who currently has a 0.67% pick rate out of a total of 14,386 matches in 28 days. Of course, out of the matches that were uploaded to Nightlight. For those doing the math, that would make the chances of going against the Twins 1 out of 149 matches, meaning it's incredibly rare to even see them.
And that's only counting the people that actually actively decide to log their data in the website. It probably could be way less than that, considering the absolute like metrics of that we are going off of in terms of the entire player base.
Similar vein, Hag has a 0.81% pick rate, and Skull Merchant has a 0.85% pick rate. The Hag's chances of appearing are 1 in 123 matches, and Skull Merchant would appear during 1 of 118 matches. This, of course, means that the chances of going against these 3 killers are rarer than winning the United States lottery. I'm just kidding. That's not at all true. However, it is pretty crazy, isn't it? But why? What is it about these 3 killers that push people away from playing them? Well, that's what we're gonna dive into today. We're gonna be unpacking the pick rate of certain killers to determine why some of them are so much more popular than others, how that
I did kind of talk a little bit about it at the beginning, and it's kind of interesting. Okay, so let's try to see if we can kind of pick up from a particular topic here. If you guys want to see the original video, it'll be linked in the description, but I'm going to just jump to the part that I want to talk about.
the highest pick rate and the 5 killers with the lowest pick rate, according to Nightlight, and see if there's some sort of trend with all of them. Interestingly enough, their placement makes a lot more sense than you'd think. The bottom 5 killers in terms of pick rate are Twins, Hag, Skull Merchant, Pinhead, and Plague. The top 5 killers are Kaneki, of course, Wesker, Huntress, Legion, and Blight.
Looking at this, it makes complete sense. And I can try to cover each one individually, at least for me personally, as to why I don't play these killers. And I can talk about a little bit as to why other people may play these killers at the top level here, on the top part of the screen. Out of these, I only play really just Legion, but either way. So when I really think about characters like Hag, Skull Merchant, Twins, and Plague, I think that their character designs are not extremely appealing to the vast majority of people, and probably even furthermore, probably the ability as well. You know, we have somebody that pukes on people, which may be kind of gross to most, maybe people that don't really want to hear, you know, puke noises that all day in their match. And then this one literally launches a person out of themselves. Like that already sounds crazy. and then this one makes weird noises. It places down mud triangles. So like, if you were telling me I had to choose one out of these 5, the only one I think I would say would just be Pinhead, because it's Hellraiser. And even then, with Pinhead specifically, this character is very hard to use, I would say, when you first pick him up. So I don't think that that's very appealing to most people. I think that's way too much to worry about. And obviously, Skull Merchant got nerfed to the ground, and also just objectively just does not have a character design that most people like. I would say, especially when Skull Merchant first dropped, I know that there was a lot of controversy around the character design and making fun of the idea of this weird bedazzled mask thing. And yeah, I mean, I can't blame them. I'm on that same team where I just don't think that she's really well designed in terms of like the sort of look. I guess they really could have done a lot better than what they did, but in terms of the weird mask and tape metal parts and the weird vest, I don't know. That's just me personally, though. I don't know. In terms of like Kaneki and Wesker, they're both strong and also popular licenses. More so, Kaneki might be more towards the powerful side in terms of the at the time that they scripted it. Huntress overall has just been an enjoyable character for a vast majority of players. I notice a lot of people gravitate towards Huntress. Legion, I think, is an easy to understand character and easy to play, so I think that's very understandable that they would be picked a lot. And obviously Blight is also very strong. And obviously, considering the whole, we talked about the meta and all the nonsense that entails with that in the past before, and obviously that is its own thing. Obviously, using the S tiers is the only way you can survive in this day and age when it comes down to these matches. So
I said before, if you're paying attention, you may notice something about the bottom and top 5 killers on this list, and it has to do with macro play and accessibility. Twins are a strong killer, but their strength really depends on how well you know the game and how to snowball. Hag is kind of the same way, needing to utilize trap placement and survivor movement.
I also have to say I agree with that statement, but I also think that Hag is not a very flashy character to really get into. I think that it's not very, at least for me personally, I'm more of like a straightforward kind of like rush down kind of player. I just want to, get in there, deal damage, get up in their face, and do my thing, like, and counter loops and stuff. Like, that's what I find fun. I enjoy the chase aspects. But with Hag, it's anti all of that. It's not about being in their face because you move slow. It's not about trying to kind of think on your feet in that sense. It's trying to plan ahead and strategize and wait around and try to push them into things. And that really doesn't fit my personal playstyle, and that's why I personally don't play Hag, but that also could be a contributor as to why other people may not enjoy the character as well.
The same goes for Skull Merchant and Pinhead. Pinhead's also an interesting case because his DLC is no longer available for purchase, so that could also be a contributing factor. However, he also has a lot of macro play baked into his design. Skull Merchant is the closest thing to unplayable that she could ever be. Plague doesn't really have a chase power unless survivors decide to cleanse, which is rare against people who know how Plague works, causing her to rely on macro play to be the most effective. The killers with the higher pick rate are much more, well, not brain dead in terms of macro play. You only really have to worry about what's right in front of you. Kaneki, Wesker, Huntress, and Blight all dominate in chases in the proper hands and aren't super.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. I think that maybe most people just enjoy the more straightforward play because of the fact that it's just objectively more fun, I would say, in my opinion, especially if your playstyle does sort of lean towards a straightforward way of playing, and not trying to plan ahead and plan things and strategize extremely closely and relying on things that may be out of your control. At least when it comes down to using something like a chase character, that it's all based around your ability to use that character and not on map necessarily, or the just try them being able to kind of counteract what you're trying to do.
Super complicated to most people, making them easy to pick up and fun to master. Springtrap is definitely going to fall into that category. The only one that really isn't like that is Legion, who doesn't have a chase power per se, but they can consistently spread pressure with their Feral Frenzy.
I will say though that Legion did get buffed too, so I think that might have also added to Legion's pick rate, because I know that they would I would assume a lot of players would want to try out Legion because of the buffs and see if they're actually like more fun to play than they were before.
Attacks, leaving survivors to spend a lot of time injured, which can lead to shorter chases or slower generators. Plus, I think Legion scratches an itch for players that Plague really doesn't. Legion's just kind of a fast-paced, fun killer, and Plague doesn't really feel like that in that way. The lower killers are all somewhat hard to understand at times, and can be really frustrating towards people who don't really know how to use them to the best of their ability, which can lead them to losing some games very hard. This naturally pushes players away from picking these guys and towards picking the higher killers. Because they can just pick up the killer and focus on chase after chase, they only really need to rely on hooking to be the most map pressure they really need. Chase, hook, and maybe kick some gens in between. That's about as complicated as they get in terms of macro play, making them much more appealing to the wider player base. While there will always be people who prefer more big picture gameplay, shit, I play a ton of Trapper, so I get it. Most people will just cling to killers that they have an easy time understanding, and that's not a bad thing at all. I do understand it, however, it does leave the less popular killers to get shafted a lot of the time. What about outliers? For example, Ghostface is a popular killer, but doesn't really have a chase power, and generally feels very weak in a lot of different scenarios.
Yeah, I've said this many times. I've said it many times, and it's crazy to me that finally we're getting even more people saying it. I'm gonna link the odds video at the end here to, you know, sort of hammer in the idea. But Ghostface, as I've said, second weakest in the game next to Skull Merchant. Like, Skull Merchant is unplayable. Ghostface at least functions, and he's the weakest in the game. And once again, we hear it again. And as a Ghostface main, I'm saying it straight up. Like, there is a lot of scenarios where he just does not have anything he can do unless you have perks. So, and then that's probably why you don't see win streaks with him. You know, he's just too weak. You know, and I'm glad we're hearing it again. You know, and I would imagine that despite that, Ghostface can still be popular. I know that when people are maybe a little bit more on the average, what do you call that? Like bracket, I guess you could say, like low and then like average brackets. I think it might be a little bit less difficult. But when you are going against like strong teams that are very dedicated to countering your ability and just like brushing out gens, it's pretty much impossible to keep up with them. Unless you're very well versed with the game in itself, and even then it's literally pulling teeth. It's extremely difficult.
Unless you get Hawkins or Larry's. Well, for some of these killers, sometimes the license is enough to get people to sign up to play. Is that why Ghosty gets so much love? Maybe, it's hard to tell for sure. Ghostface is a pretty complicated guy to play, but can also be a lot of fun with his stealth mechanic. And he, on top of that, gets a ton of cosmetics, which I'm sure contributes a little bit. The same can be said for Myers, who has an even higher pick rate, but is generally not that strong, I'd say. However, people do...
I think that it's also because Myers is probably one of the most iconic characters in the game, and he's been in the game for a very, very long time. And is well beloved in the community, so I think that's why he gets picked a lot as well.
Do love the Halloween franchise, and Myers is just a classic simple killer to play, which I'm sure contributes to how often people pick him. It isn't always a cut and dry thing for some killers, but I think you'd be a little silly not to notice the trend between the top 5 killers and the bottom 5 killers that I pointed out. Fact of the matter is, when making a list based on something like this, someone has to be at the top and someone has to be at the bottom. However, what concerns me is the disparity between the two. It worries me that Kaneki has an 8% pick rate, meaning you'll see him in 1 of 12 matches right now, and the lowest has a 0.67% pick rate. That's a huge difference. Question is, can behavior fix that disparity without sacrificing the killer's identity? I'm not so sure. I would say for the most part, Hag is fine from a balance standpoint, but should she be fundamentally changed just to make her more popular? No, I don't think so, do you? For me, it really boils down to accessibility. I would be extremely interested to see behavior give some changes to lower picked killers, not relating to, reworking them necessarily, but simply just some small changes to make them more accessible to the wider player base. For example, Pinhead can hit an amazing shot through a wall to hit a survivor, but whether or not he gets value out of it depends on where the survivor is and if they break the chains quick enough. I would say that, as well as if you're running the add-on that makes them deal damage, that makes the chains deal damage if they are healthy, which is nice.
But no, I agree with that. He's a very difficult character to play, and you know that also probably contributes to it.
Wouldn't mind if that got looked at in some capacity again. I'm aware that was already addressed, but it's still really annoying. Maybe Hag would benefit from some better map traversal instead of relying on survivors stepping on traps without making her unbearable to face. And they could make Skull Merchant a killer again. Would these fix the issues? Maybe not entirely, but it couldn't hurt to see the killers in question rise in popularity as they become easier to pick up for most people, instead of just being killers that fit a certain niche. But at the same time, I don't really have a problem with that either. I simply don't want some killers to be so rare that you almost never see them, and as the roster grows bigger and bigger, I worry that some killers will go ages without getting proper treatment, and I don't like that. With an issue like this, you really have to pick your poison, and it's a much more complicated issue instead of just...
I completely agree, honestly, but yeah, I mean, and at least my thoughts on it, I think I covered maybe at least a little bit of why people may not pick a lot of these characters, and let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Is there any killers that you also think that are not picked a lot, and do you agree with the idea that these characters are picked so low as well? Yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Check out the original video linked in the description. While you're there, you can see ways to support the channel. You can follow on Twitch to watch it play Killer live, and I'll see you guys in the next video.